Hi folks, Frankie Paloma here once again. Now are you like me, fed up with all this stuff that's going on, and can't believe that a president would put this up on Twitter? Jesus. Yeah, the sooner he goes, the better. And we'll no longer have to listen to these two, the real fake news, Katie Hopkins and Stefan Molyneux. But first, let's discuss them individually. And we'll start with Hopkins, the girl who always seems to pick the wrong guy. And the first thing we can see is she's a master of disguise. In this shot, she's supposedly impersonating the wife of Prince Harry, Meghan Markle. And I gotta say, the resemblance is, challenging to say the least. Now, she's quite happy to be known as the most hated woman in the world. Why? Because that's the way she planned it. She gets invited to all the media platforms, which should help her, of course, replace the £1 million mansion she lost because of her dishonest reporting. But don't worry, with her new book coming out, she'll be back on track. And of course, there's her contribution to politics, which involves spending time in Trumpland. Now, she's always been an admirer of Margaret Thatcher. And what she's saying here is that 4 hours after surviving an IRA bomb that killed some of her colleagues, here she is back in business. And her message is basically like she says at the end there, not like today's female politicians weeping over hurdy words. Well, when Thatcher got her ass kicked out the door, it was a different story. Her colleagues getting blown to pieces, she could cope with that, but losing her job, weeping over hurdy words. Now, as you can quite plainly see here, she claims to be a journalist. Well, let's check that one out. When a report came out about this horrific fire that killed 72 people, of which these are just a few, it stated that the firemen should never have told the residents to stay where they were. And Hopkins wrote, "Man, when a building is on fire, common sense tells us to leave it." Yeah, not exactly hiding your bigotry there, Katie, are you? And not the kind of thing you'd expect from a so-called journalist. Now, she communicates with her fans via Twitter, and she spews out her verbal garbage day and night. Stuff like this. And it says, such a distressing video from Trudeau's new Canada. Sikh man battering his wife in the middle of the road. So I did a search on the internet to find out about this story. And guess what? Little Miss Tweety Pie here is a very selective lady. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff out there on the internet regarding men beating up women. Places like Brazil, and of course don't forget the USA, Belgium, and...
ISIS! Right here! We have ISIS!
Yeah, back to Canada again. To this guy, a Canadian who wanted to beat the crap out of a Muslim couple.
Stay away from me.
ISIS! ISIS! It's ISIS! ISIS!
Stay away from me.
So why didn't you cover that story, Katie? Didn't fit your agenda, did it? No, Katie's not a real journalist. And that was quite obvious when she covered this story where 2 people were stabbed to death on London Bridge. She put out a tweet regarding these guys, describing them as the best of British heroes, completely forgetting that one of them was a reformed terrorist. Yeah, a Muslim. And she was quick to report another knife attack in The Hague. But much to her disappointment, that was a local guy. And the same goes for the killing of children in Japan. Also a local guy. But for some reason she blames everything on Sadiq Khan, the Muslim mayor who voted on same-sex marriage. And she also blamed him for the London Christmas tree. How pathetic can you get? Even more pathetic. But she won't give up. Oh no. Muslim migrant runs over wife, then gets out, grabs axe from car, and chops her head off. Yes, a disgusting crime, but she could have found a better one. This non-Muslim guy, probably a Christian, killed his wife, then decided to make a meal of it. Yeah, he ate her brain, her heart, and part of one of her lungs. And yes, he's American. I think all Americans should be thrown out of America, don't you? Nope, even he disagrees, because he knows you can't judge all Americans on his behavior. And here's another one, saying that the National Health Service and schools are screwed because we have too many outsiders in the country. Well, someone should tell Katie that if they all left, the National Health Service would simply collapse. Now, apart from promoting Donald Trump, Katie's other job seems to be
reporting on the majority Pakistani Muslim grooming gang.
yeah, the grooming gang scandal. But that's over. What about all the horrible stuff now committed by white folks? Like recently. Take a look at this one. The guy on the right paid that woman to have sex with an underage girl while he watched it on Skype. And here we got another one. Yes, a white guy who rapes a child. But what about this young man, stabbed to death by 3 white kids? Yeah, while you were traveling around the planet telling folks about these terrible brown people, British women and children were being sexually abused by white guys. Can I suggest you maybe go online and take a look at what's actually going on out there? And here's the daddy of them all. 200 children. 71 charges of sexual abuse towards kids between 6 months and 12 years. And on all of these cases, you said nothing. Now Molyneux, he's also on Twitter, and he does the same kind of shit. He calls it Middle East London so predictable. Basically, it's brown people fighting in the street. And like Katie Hopkins, he somehow didn't find this one. Yep, white men fighting in a London street. Now, has anybody noticed that since Trump found God, Molyneux seems to be going in the same direction? Could it be he got the word from up above?
I brought my Bible.
He certainly did. No, he doesn't believe in God, but he believes in getting more subscribers. And yeah, it looks good, 926,000. But his average viewing figures per show these days are 30,000 per show, which kind of suggests to me that people have switched off that little bell. Now, he claims to be a philosopher, but as you've seen already, his philosophy is kind of, flexible. For example, these protests in Hong Kong started out quite peaceful, and he put that down to their high IQ. Unfortunately,
fires burned early Monday morning outside the entrance of Hong Kong's Polytechnic University.
Unfortunately, he couldn't explain why the police who have got the same IQ behaved like this. And look at this one. It's about Vladimir Putin. Check out Molyneux's comment, and we're all trained to hate him by the media. I wonder why. Yeah, that was him invading Ukraine. And now even more flexible philosophy. This guy's a Canadian sports commentator, and he said something that was quite racist.
He was targeting not only immigrants, but especially immigrants of color.
Very few people wear poppy.
Hockey commentator Don Cherry courted controversy over this.
You people come here, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that.
Appearing to blame immigrants for not appreciating Canada's veterans.
And of course, Katie Hopkins supported the guy 100%. But surprisingly, Steph said that the guy shouldn't have said what he said. Until, of course, the day after.
Yeah, he said something that, you could say was not very elegantly phrased, to put it mildly. But so what?
So what? Is he kidding? So I did some research on the guy, and it was very revealing.
Don Cherry went on the Fifth Estate in 1990 and talked to Eric Malling that foreigners were stealing Canadian jobs. He has offended people before, but the bigotry of Don Cherry, it was chicken Swedes, it was untrustworthy Russians. It wasn't just all Canadians, it was French Canadians. It was a very Anglo-Saxon viewpoint of our game and our Canada.
But so what?
He's a racist, Steph. Just like you. I mean, it's all there in black and white. And of course, this old chestnut.
It's not that easy to blend when you don't look the same.
Now, what does he mean by not looking the same? Nobody looks the same. Isn't that right, Katie? We're all different. That's what you call diversity. I mean, what's going on with the guy? But this last tweet I find really amusing. He says, Society doesn't need to teach men not to rape. The cause is not male nature. Most rapists are raised by single mothers. I'm not gonna even comment on that one. Okay, let's get on with the dynamic duo.
Hi everybody, very pleased to be chatting with Katie Hopkins.
Yeah, Katie Hopkins, the thinking man's, thinking man really.
I remember back in the day this whole idea of diversity. We're going to get lots of people from all over the world, different religions, different perspectives, different ideas, and it's going to be this wonderful bubbling conversation.
Multiculturalism means that we all die together.
Hey, Katie, you hit it right on the nose there.
Encouraged by a newspaper advertisement offering cheap transport, hundreds of Jamaicans made the trip to the country they had fought for in the Second World War in the hope of finding work.
Did you hear that, Miss Smarty Pants? They fought against fascism with us. But please, continue.
British people are extraordinarily accommodating until such time as they feel that you are using their niceness to take advantage of them. At which point, the refrigerator door closes and it's like, oh yeah, these were the people who ended up ruling a third of the globe.
Does anyone get the irony in what he just said?
These were the people who ended up ruling a third of the globe, ruling a third of the globe, ruling a third of the globe. It's like the two faces of the British public, you know, really, really nice until they're not. And then they're really, really not.
That's really, really true. And I'm laughing a bit because I can hear myself being described.
What? She can hear herself being described? As really nice? Really?
The rise of the right is a fantastic thing.
Do you think it'd be worth your while when you get home to maybe dig out a book on the 1930s Germany?
So it's the lowest form of argument.
People think that fascism is people in jackboots. Fascism doesn't arrive like that. Fascism arrives like this. It pretends to be your friend. It tells you what's going to get you a job. And it others people. It makes people into enemies.
Katie Hopkins.
I'd like to say to Americans that voted Donald Trump, thank you very much indeed. Go, go, go. Make America great again.
Yep, no doubt about it. We know who she's working for. The same guy he's working for. Oh, and she absolutely adores Boris Johnson. Ha, look at that. Better to be grabbed by the pussy than have a pussy as a prime minister. But hey, I hope she doesn't tell Donald what Boris said about him.
Donald Trump is clearly out of his mind. You can't ban people going to the United States in that way, or indeed to any country. And what he's doing is playing the game of the terrorists and those who seek to divide us. I would invite him to come and see the whole of London and take him round the city, except that I wouldn't want to expose Londoners to any unnecessary risk of meeting Donald Trump.
Now, have you ever heard Katie criticize Boris Johnson for his comment on Donald Trump? You know, with her being a journalist and all. No, and you never will, because she too is playing the game.
If Islam is so fantastic, why didn't you just stay in the Islam?
So now she gives her opinion on why Muslims leave their country and head for our shores. So we'll let her ramble on while we watch the reality of it.
If Islam is so fantastic, why didn't you just stay in the Islamic countries where you could practice your religion because it was so fabulous? Why come to Christian countries and then impose the very religion that you ran away from because it was too oppressive or you weren't able to do the things you want to do?
Yeah, things you want to do like keeping your family alive. But we know very well it's got nothing to do with practicing their own religion. So let's watch something similar, but we'll use the voice of Stefan Molyneux when he was talking about Syrian refugees landing on European shores. So here we are, the place where Steph grew up. Now this city got hit pretty bad during the war, and it was decided to move children out into the countryside. So let's imagine the bombing became more widespread, leading to a decision to take the kids to Ireland by boat. If Molyneux was around at that time, would he say this?
What would have happened if someone had come and said, they'd just set up big machine guns and said, you must turn back or we shoot. Then they would have to shoot over their heads, and if they continued to come, then they would have had to shoot into the crowd. Then there would have been a dozen or 24 bodies, which would have been tragic. But it would have been suicide by cop. I'm not saying I'm approving of all of this, you understand? I'm just talking about this is the reality of law.
Said the peaceful parent. And by the way, guys, if you ever wonder why people become suicide bombers, here's a clue. Now I'm going to stop it there because of something he said earlier.
But it would have been suicide by cop.
Do you remember that case where this guy, Michael Brown, got shot by a cop? Now, he was no angel for sure. He robbed a convenience store and he was pretty violent towards the owner. But when the police arrived, they shot him dead, simply because he was approaching the cop. At the time, everybody said, why did he just shoot him in the legs? That would stop him. But Molyneux, who covered the story at the time, said this.
He's charging at the cop, and the cop shoots him. People say, well, why didn't you just shoot him in the knees? Or why didn't you just disable him somehow? And it's like, it's not really how that stuff works.
Really, Steph? It looks like a shoot to kill to me.
It's not really how that stuff works.
Nothing to do with racism. Okay, back to Cagney and Lacey.
So we don't import multiculturalism, we import monocultures who continue to hate each other just like they did before.
Well, if you want to talk about groups of people who hate each other, look no further than your own backyard. They're all white, they worship the same God, and yet for some reason, they started to kill each other. And even today, at a lesser degree, the hatred is still going on. Build that wall. Now, they say that the problem with being a liar is you tend to forget the lies that you told. Well,
I would go out on a limb here, Katie, let me know what you think. I'd go out on a limb and say, in a country where, say, raping girls used to be illegal.
Yeah, once again, the big rape scandal in the UK. Well, I too will go out on a limb. Because you folks might remember on my last video, I pointed out that Molyneux couldn't quite make his mind up with regard to the amount of victims.
When the Pakistani rape gangs were preying upon tens and tens of thousands of little white British girls.
And on another occasion, it was a much larger figure.
So this is 1 million predominantly white girls groomed or raped by Pakistani men, mostly in the UK.
And on this occasion, a completely different figure.
When you have hundreds of thousands of young white British girls being raped by these Pakistani gangs.
Yeah, bring it on.
I am responsible to you and to the truth, and I will continue to tell you the truth.
Someone like me, a Christian conservative, has no right to complain.
Well, I was raised a Christian. Do not bear false witness. I've always got to tell the truth.
Tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
1 million predominantly white girls.
You couldn't make it up, could you? Oh, I forgot. He does make it up. Now their hero, Donald Trump, was up to his eyes in deep doo-doo. And I couldn't help but notice that Molyneux didn't cover this inquiry. And then this showed up, which is pretty pathetic. And here's a comment he made previously. Republicans follow the rule of law. Democrats do whatever it takes to defeat their enemies. Yep, Trump's lunacy was causing big problems for Steph and Katie. So what did they do? Just talk about other stuff. So he did a bunch of shows that didn't involve Trump. And one of them was discussing Bernie Sanders' heart attack. And the guest on his show was a doctor. And you wouldn't believe the disgusting comments they made.
I assumed that in the middle of his chest was a frozen bust of Stalin. So the fact that he actually does have a heart is quite a shocker to me.
Can you believe that a doctor would actually behave like this?
You know, I wouldn't vote for him. Stinking socialist, like you said, a communist wannabe. I would be very leery of voting for somebody with that level of sickness.
So there you go, folks. Don't vote for Bernie, because Molly and the doc say so. And now, to honor the deal, it's payback time.
All right. So, well, thanks a lot for the analysis and the updates. Just give people a reminder of your website and the books. I'll link to all of these below. Highly recommended. Go for it.
Yeah, go for it, Doc. Sell your books like you just sold your soul. Now, Steph did another show under this title, Because Trump was still a hot potato.
So let's move over a little here, and let's, what in the fresh-laced bowels of Satan, bottom-scraping of Dante's Inferno hellscape is this?
So the photograph shows a naked woman brushing the hair of a younger woman. And her name is Katie Hill.
California Representative Katie Hill allegedly involved female staffer in a 2-year throuple relationship.
It's sexy time.
It is not a threesome for sexual purposes, although I'm sure threesomes for sexual purposes are involved. It is a 3-way polyamorous relationship.
Okay, I'll stop it there because, as usual, it goes on forever. But it was obvious he was quite disgusted.
Ugh. Ooh.
So let's go back in time to Roger Stone, who at this moment is unavailable for comment. but I'm sure Katie will keep us up to date with what's going on. But I believe that Roger too liked a little bit of hanky-panky in the old group sex department. Was that a problem for Steph? Apparently not.
Well, we're back with a good friend, Roger Stone.
And they start the conversation about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky.
When Monica was working for Bill, or I should say working under Bill, or in any event...
Working Bill over, something like that.
Roger Stone, the swinger, discussing the morality of Bill Clinton. Classic. But let's continue with Steph.
This bothered me in a very deep way, and I'll sort of tell you why. Marriage serves as a personal and social and community commitment to create a stable environment in which to raise children. And so people who take this and then just use it to serve their own base of the brain, are-selected, endorphin-pursuing, mammals-humping every whole kind of base lust, okay, well, you're just hijacking it for your...
There's no point in continuing, is there? But this kind of garbage doesn't come free, folks.
Hey, don't forget, you can help me out at freedomain.com/donate.
Just to point out here, you can't use PayPal for obvious reasons, really. Now, let's talk about Poland, a country very dear to the hearts of Steph and Katie.
I go to Poland? What is it, 99% white? I don't need any security, the streets are incredibly clean, crime is almost non-existent.
And now the ladies' turn. There you go, defending Christian culture, traditional marriage, strong borders, all in the safest country for our girls. Now that surprised me, because I was expecting this. You know, the big scandal.
A string of recent accusations of child sex abuse by members of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, look at this. The abuse has been going for 28 years, and it concerns 382 priests. And it affected 625 children, most of them aged 15 or younger. So why didn't you report on that one, Steph? You, the man who's so concerned about children. And the same goes for you, Hopkins. Would it be for the same reason you didn't report this one? Because usually you're on the ball regarding white British girls getting raped and murdered. But it's quite obvious, isn't it? The guy who did it was Polish. You guys just don't do Polish crime, do you? And why? Because they're white, just like us. And it would be just too upsetting for Steph. Yeah, we have to look after our own people. But who are your people? I'll tell you who. These kind of people. The trumpeteers. The kind of guys you would have absolutely nothing to do with in everyday life. But they fulfill a purpose. Pawns in the game of political chess. And I do believe that the king is about to make a move. When asked the question, does he know Prince Andrew?
No, I don't know Prince Andrew, but it's a tough story.
And I believe it's now your move. Take your time. No rush.